Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show where we're always going back to school, just without Rodney Dangerfield. And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday, TED Excellence Thursday. Yes, we return once again to the wonderful world of off-brand TED Talks, and boy howdy, was it a week for TEDx, because there was a lot of stuff posted, and most of it not in English. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do? But for better or for worse, we'll find out as we go. Something did catch my eye. But before I get to that, who is catching my eye in the chat? Or something. Keeverdam, good evening. And Keeverdam, thank you so much. At the top of the chat box, guys, Keeverdam has helpfully provided the links to the GoFundMes for our friends Twisted Skipster, James Colley, Grisella, and Angry Illinoisian. If you can take a look at those when you have the opportunity. They and their families have individually experienced a hardship or two, depending on the circumstances in the last few months. So if you take a look at those, if you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. If you can share those out on social media, that would also be helpful. So thank you for that ahead of time. And thank you again, Keeverdam. Who else is here? Zed the Snarky, good evening. Tyr Alexander, the Gentleman Lich, good evening. Lurking Gopher, good evening. Nice to see you when you're usually lurking. Kiro Soldier, good evening. Noah Asensio, good evening. Mike R., good evening. Derek LaRue, thank you so much, as always, for your continued support and generosity. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a good evening. And is this the first stream I've done in the new year? I think it is. My brain might be blanking a bit. Well, either way, welcome to the new year, everybody. And Derek LaRue as well. Thank you. Attack Alpaca, good evening. Urcule Di Stefano, good evening. Datura Jones, good evening. Jamie Milquist, good evening. Ryan R., good evening. The Best Remy, good evening. Tall Person, good evening. Chicago Mike, good evening. Alan Thyler, thank you so much for the Samurai Dancing #1 Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
That is a Weebo Jones Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. Very generous of you. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a good evening and hope you enjoyed the show. Robert Pincus, good evening. Roger Reynolds, good evening. Spoonie the Rebel, good evening. Rib Rascal, good evening. And Simon Willikins, good evening. And for anybody that I missed, anybody that is in the future, anybody who's lurking, aside from Gopher, good evening. All right, so tonight, I was caught by two different things about this talk. The first one was it had no comments on it, at least at the time that I came across it. And it had been out for like a week and a half, and no one had commented on it. I was like, really? And I was like, oh, okay. Secondly, it only had 110 views at the time that I looked at it. And I was like, huh. You know, TEDx, the YouTube channel, has like something like, 3 or 4 million subscribers. And so for their videos to only have less views than I get on my channel, I just thought that was a little odd. And secondly, it was the title itself, because it put a big mystery question mark in my head. Safe is still not enough for LGBTQ plus students. Like, so what is needed? Safe plus? I'm not sure what it means. And so it's always the questions in my head that cause me to say, well, if I don't know something, let's find out. And so that was the driving force behind today's selection. But anyway, there's that logic there. Let's see. Tonight's bingo card is bingo card A as a result of the poll on Twitter. Links to the bingo cards are in the description below. And as noted last week, for reasons I won't give a spoiler to if you haven't seen last week's TED Excellence, bingo card C has been changed in its arrangement for reasons that you'll know if you watched last week's episode. So there's a tag to go watch last week's episode all the way through, mind you, or else you won't get it. But yeah, bingo card A, so get your bingo cards ready. If you'd like to take part in the weekly Twitter poll that decides the bingo card, just follow me on Twitter or X at scribe_light. All right. I think that's all the preamble I need. Any other hellos before I need a hello? I don't think so. If I miss somebody, let me know. But otherwise, this one clocks in at just under 16 minutes. So let's get started because it's a relatively long one. That's what she said. I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
I'd like you to close your eyes
Okay.
and picture yourself back in high school.
Oh, well, that's a sad state of affairs. I was a lonely boy.
Or wherever you were when you were 14 or 15 or 16.
14, 15, or 16. 14 was junior high. I think it was at the tail end of junior high. Yes, maybe. No, I don't know. Something like that. Okay. Well, for the sake of argument, we'll say early high school. All right.
Now, I can tell from the number of eyes that are still open that not everybody wants to go back there.
Or maybe they don't want to close their eyes. Okay.
And if your experience was anything like mine, an uncoordinated, closeted gay kid growing up in New Jersey in the 1970s, I can understand why.
Okay, well, there's a childhood or family anecdote. So going to the bingo card real quick. Childhood or family anecdote, and also circling free space. I'm going to go over the bingo card one time to remind us all what we're listening for as we proceed, and see if anything else comes up as we go. Collectivizes own demographic. We'll see. Systemic or institutional. Sales pitch for product or service. Already circled childhood or family anecdote. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion in some way, shape, or form. Plays victim. I already get the sense we're going to go there, but we'll see. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Privilege. Contradicts own point or argument. Patriarchy. Weightless example. Economic disparity of one form or another. Feminism. Marginalized or marginalization. I could also see us getting there pretty quick as well. A list, and remember, there has to be at least some kind of formal list throughout the talk, not just necessarily, listing off things in a sentence, but saying, here's 3 steps to, sovereignty or something. I don't know. White supremacy, word salad, self-vilification or wretchedness, argumentative non sequitur, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, mind reading or assumes motives, benevolent condescension, anecdote that probably never happened, and lastly, leaves out vital context. So far on the board, we have childhood or family anecdote and free space. And who do I see in the chat? Shadowclaw, hello. Angela Ariaga, hello. And did I already say hello to Tall Person? Tall Person, if I didn't, I apologize. If I did, you get 2 for that. Anybody else I missed? I don't think so. All right, anyway. So yes, you were a gay kid in, New Jersey in the 1970s. Okay.
But whether your eyes are open or closed,
Uh-huh.
I'd like you to think of a time
Mm-hmm.
when you actually felt good at school.
When I actually felt good at school. A time I actually felt good at school was, strangely enough, and I've talked about this before, one of my favorite teachers was my anthropology teacher in high school. And he was excellent. I mean, as a teacher, he was excellent. I think I took that as an elective or something. I really wasn't that jazzed about it. But I tell you what, that guy made that subject so engaging and so much fun that to this day, I still remember stuff he taught me back then. And I looked forward to going to his class every day, even if I was in the doldrums about everything else, school or life or otherwise. I knew I was at least going to be engaged and have fun in my anthropology class. And that was 11th grade. So I think I would have been 16 going on 17-ish. So that's within the age range he was talking about. So there you go.
Even if it was for just one fleeting moment, try to think of something.
Okay. Yep.
Maybe you accomplished something that made you feel smart.
Oh, you're talking about like one event? Yeah, sure. I mean, I passed a test in anthropology class or whatever.
Or discovered a hidden talent. Or had a teacher who believed in you.
Yeah, well, okay, sure.
Now, with that memory in the back of your mind,
Uh-huh.
I'd like you to open your eyes.
Uh-huh.
And try to think of a word to complete this sentence.
Oh, boy, a word to complete this sentence. All right, are we ready, guys? Here comes the test.
I believe all students deserve to feel blank at school.
Uh, I was about to say something inappropriate for family hour. Accomplished. Here you go. Okay. Optimistic. How's that? Optimistic. I think the title of the talk is giving away what his answer is going to be, but I'll for the sake of family hour, I'll say optimistic.
Whatever comes to mind.
Okay. Well, I mean, whatever comes to mind, I withheld, but yeah.
I believe all students deserve to feel blank at school.
Right.
Just record your word, or maybe a couple of words on that invisible notepad in your mind.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll put it in the chat for posterity's sake. Optimistic. Because honestly, I had a pretty dour outlook on life during high school for several reasons. I was quiet. I wore glasses. I was studious and stoic and maybe a little bit more mature than my peers. I was picked on. I felt alone. I was not in the best mental shape in high school for a variety of reasons. So if I had one thing I could wish upon all students who were in my position or otherwise in high school, it is at least a passive sense of optimism about themselves, life, the world, etc. So there you go. Hit the button.
Now, I'm a former high school teacher, and now I teach youth development, mostly to undergrads and grad students who are interested in teaching.
Okay.
I
So you're a teacher of future teachers. Okay.
also do workshops with teachers and school administrators around the country. So I do this exercise a lot.
Okay.
And one word that someone in the group almost always comes up with is safe.
Keeverdam said safe. Urcule DeStefano said safe. Of course, like I said, I think we were kind of spoiled in the sense that he kind of put that in the title, or TEDx put it in the title. I'm not quite sure. But okay, so you're going to ignore any other answers that might come up and just go with the one you want. Sounds about right.
People believe all students deserve to feel safe.
I wasn't so jazzed about the bullies in school. I didn't think the bullies and the people who were like, I got physically assaulted more than a couple of times in high school. So if there's at least one segment of the population that I didn't want to feel safe to do what they were doing, it was the bullies. But okay, you're stuck on safe. I knew you were stuck on safe. Tell us more about safe.
People believe all students deserve to feel safe at school. And they should. Safety is a prerequisite for learning.
Okay, well, if I'm being pragmatic and everything else, yes, I don't want anybody to be unsafe technically at school. It's true. It's true. And also, Rib Rascal points out, Safe, a recommended Julianne Moore flick. Yes, if you want to look at... yeah, I won't give anything away about it. We watched that in school, actually. I forget exactly what the context was. We watched it, but our teacher, one of my teachers had us watch that one time. And that was a disturbing / awkward movie in several different ways. And it is an interesting character study. I'll tell you that. If you haven't seen it, I too would recommend it. God, what was the name of the guy who directed it? It was on the tip of my tongue. It wasn't. My brain says something like Dan Brown, but no, it wasn't Dan Brown. It was something. Somebody in the chat will correct me at some point.
If students don't feel safe, they can't focus on reading or writing or math. They can't make music or art or theater if they have to watch their backs every day.
Well, I mean, okay, but, high school is kind of... Okay, yeah, all right, I'll give you that. Well, what do you mean watch your back? I mean, I had to watch my back because I was a target for bullies because of how I behaved, I guess.
Now, I'm going to share a number with you.
Okay.
82%.
Are you going to give me some other number to compare it to, or are we going to go through the God of the Gaps theory of statistical analysis?
This is the percentage of students who, in a recent survey, said they sometimes or often feel unsafe at school.
Welcome to high school. You went through high school, yeah? I didn't feel 100% safe at high school, but most kids, you know that kids are jerks, right?
That number is from the National School Climate Survey by GLSEN.
By GLSEN? By Menon. Here's the thing. To a certain degree, I'm going to say this, maybe this is a bit contrarian. To a certain degree, kids should not feel 100% safe in school. Not in the sense that they're under like physical bodily threat all the time, but either to their ego, either to their sense of, their safety zone or whatever else. You have to learn to interact with the world. You have to learn that the world is not a cushy, cuddly, safe place all the time. You have to be wary. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to have some sense of the people around you. You have to have some alertness to potential danger or threat or just obstacle. So anyway, I guess what my curiosity will be as we proceed through this is, all right, kids should be safe at school. How do you define safe, and how will you create that atmosphere to your satisfaction? I guess that would be my question.
The Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network.
So it the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network? Never heard of it. GLSEN? Oh boy.
And it's based on more than 22,000 students who self-identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or somewhere else under the LGBTQ plus umbrella.
Oh, so it's the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, and this survey discounted straight people. Oh. Okay. Also, did you say non-binary? Non-binary is not a sexual orientation, and transgender is not a sexual orientation. But okay, moving on.
And they most frequently felt unsafe for reasons associated with their sexual orientation or gender identity.
Oh, okay. And you didn't poll straight kids about how safe they felt or what their reasons for feeling unsafe possibly were. All right, so you excluded an entire demographic. In fact, probably the largest demographic orientation-wise, and just focused in, okay. And so there are no other factors that could lead to someone feeling unsafe at school. Sounds very scientific.
How many young people does that 82% translate to?
You said 22,000. I don't know. Does this include straight kids? And also, I don't know. There's still something a little bit creepy to me about interrogating children. And I still count everything up through 18 years old, or else, generally, both legally and mentally as minors, interrogating children in the first place about their sexual orientation, especially at school. Like, is that really your business? Should that be? I don't know. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Well, we don't know exactly.
Wait. Hold on. Yeah, I want to show you a number. 82%. That's 82% of 22,000 students that we surveyed, excluding the largest demographic of this category that we're looking at. And how many kids does that represent? I don't know. Just you can't extrapolate from the survey sample. And backing up a little bit because I did cut them off.
How many young people does that 82% translate to? Well, we don't know exactly, but national estimates are that there are about 1.9 million LGBTQ young people in the United States.
Okay, all right. So I spoke slightly too soon, but still, that was a ridiculously strange way to start off. 1.9 million students in the United States. If you say so, I guess I'll take your word for it.
So we could easily be talking about more than 1.5 million young people.
Could be, sure. How many straight kids would have as well answered that they don't feel safe at school? Again, however you're measuring safe, that's my other question is, what do you mean by safe?
Who right now, as I give this talk, don't feel safe in their schools.
What do you mean by safe? Do you mean physical safety? Do you mean mental safety? I mean, most teenagers are not mentally safe because they're teenagers in the first place. And, even straight kids are sort of not necessarily mentally safe about their sexual orientation or their sense of self or their comfortableness with their bodies and so on because they're teenagers, but you completely excluded that demographic from your study, so I guess doesn't matter.
1.5 million.
Uh-huh.
Why are so many LGBTQ young people saying they don't feel safe in their schools?
I don't know why.
Well, 68%, more than 2/3, say they often hear homophobic or transphobic language.
Oh, I heard that same stuff too, directed at me, and I was straight. You know why? Because it was an insult. But you know what I learned to do? I learned to ignore it. Because sticks and stones. And there's plenty of other words that were thrown my way as a high school student, junior high student, that had nothing to do with orientation or sexuality that were still insults. And I still learned to ignore it.
4 out of 5 have been verbally harassed.
Verbally harassed in high school? Oh no! I'm sorry. I know. I am totally and absolutely calloused here. I don't know what to tell you. I was, for all intents and purposes, your classic, stereotypical nerd throughout my entire growing up in school. In public education, glasses, I read comic books. This is back before, for those of you in the audience who might be, too young to realize this, there was a time where having an interest in comic books or science fiction or anything that wasn't sports was seen as an anomaly. You were seen as an outsider and a freak who could be easily teased and abused physically, mentally, verbally, or otherwise without any ramifications because you couldn't fight back. You had nothing on them. You didn't have popularity. You didn't have friends at your back. You didn't have the physicality oftentimes to do anything about it if you could, if you wanted to. And so you just had to kind of sit there and either avoid those people or just kind of take it and let it roll off your back. That's all you could do. So I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, as they say. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for somebody complaining about teenagers having a rough time growing up. Because however you slice it, being a teenager is often not that much fun. And I was put through absolute hell, emotionally, verbally, physically, etc. in my growing up. So maybe I'm just a cynic. What can I tell you? So far, you're not selling me on nothing. Sob story doesn't quite hit me that hard.
Either in school or on school grounds.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And about 1/3 have been physically harassed.
Well, I was one of those, but you don't want to talk to me because I don't find attractive the kind of people that you see as important to feel attracted to, I guess, or gender identity wise.
So lack of safety is a major problem for LGBTQ students in the United States.
It's not, I don't know how many times, I don't want to be a broken record on this. Teenagers in general experience these things. It is not special to your preferred demographics.
But here's another problem.
Uh-huh.
When I asked you to fill in that blank a few minutes ago,
Mm-hmm.
you probably thought of all sorts of words.
No, I did think of a couple of words, but I only thought of like 3. The first 2 were going to go together as a phrase, but then I settled on optimism.
You may have thought all students deserve to feel affirmed.
No, because not all students deserve to feel affirmed, especially if they're doing badly. They need to be corrected.
Or supported. Or
I mean, insofar as being encouraged towards improving in their education, sure.
Or even celebrated.
No, some kids in my high school did not deserve to be celebrated.
Safe.
Yeah.
If you stop and think about it,
Uh-huh.
is a pretty low bar for what we want students to feel at school.
Okay. How are you going to indemnify teenagers from verbal harassment? How? Just tell me how you're going to if you solve for that problem, you'll win some version of the Nobel Peace Prize. But by all means, tell me how you're going to arrange for the safety, the immunity of verbal harassment in high school for anybody, regardless of what demographic they fall into.
Yet I would argue that even in places where well-meaning educators are trying to make things better for LGBTQ plus kids, that's where we're stuck.
Why can't you just hope for safety for all students? Again, do you think straight kids have no problems? Do you think straight kids don't get teased, don't get assaulted, don't get talked down to, don't get psychologically geared towards? This is ticking me off because I can empathize with people being picked on. This is part of the education I went through growing up. This is why I've always been able to empathize with people who are being unfairly treated or being made fun of for what they are or how they behave or something else that is harmless to everybody else and fine for them. Is because I went through that. I can empathize through my own personal experience with that kind of thing. So, insofar as it goes that a gay student or a lesbian student or whatever is being picked on or diminished or beat up or whatever simply on the nature of who they are, to thine own self be true. Yeah, no, you got me. You're pushing at an open door as far as sympathizing with the experience of it, but you're doing nothing for your argument by saying it's somehow special to them. If you want to argue against bullying in school or trying to encourage kids to have a better self-esteem in spite of the bullies, I'm right there with you. But right now, I feel kind of condescended to. So I'm going to circle benevolent condescension. Just a little bit. Let's see. Also going to collectivize own demographics, circle in that one. And yeah, we'll wait on that. We'll wait on anything else.
We try to keep students safe with anti-bullying programs and zero tolerance policies.
And how are those working out?
We tamp down on slurs and harassment.
And how's that working out?
Maybe a few teachers have safe zone stickers on their doors, indicating that their classrooms are safe spaces, an oasis in what otherwise might be an unfriendly school building.
Yeah, how is coddling children working out for us as a society these last, let's say 20 years or so?
All these things are important.
But
are they enough?
You tell me what more should be done.
I'm going to share another number with you that's a lot smaller.
Oh, good.
16%.
16%. Okay. I'm not even going to wager a guess.
This is the percentage of students in the GLSEN survey who said there was any mention of LGBTQ plus topics or issues in what they studied at school.
So, you know, I don't recall a whole lot of time spent on straight sexual topics when I was going to school. I don't know if that's just me. When I was maybe that just shows my age. We didn't discuss a whole lot of heterosexual topics and subject matter in school, save for when it came to sex ed time. But that was just dealing with the mechanics of reproduction. Thank you, Keeverdam. Hold on. Mind reading assumes motives. That is true. That is true. He has jumped into what people think they know and so on, or what you might have said and this, that, and the other. Yeah, that's true. True enough. Okay. Thank you, Keeverdam. Also, a couple more hellos here. Molly Okami, good evening. Is Andy Masterson in here? Wait, did I see a tag there for Andy Masterson? Did I miss him in here? Uh-oh. Also, Roan Harushin, good evening. Andy, are you in the, oh, there you are. Hey, Andy, how's it going? Andy Masterson, my co-panelist on most Sundays, the last couple Sundays because of the holidays otherwise, for The Shit List on Midnight's Edge After Dark. And that's at Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where classically we go over our top 5 lists on different subjects, mostly involving pop culture, movies, TV shows, and things like that. I think this week we're talking about our top 5 villains or something. I think so. I think that's the plan. Anyway, nice to see you there, Andy. Angel Burst, thank you so much for the trumpeting lime and lemon. I don't usually see the lime and the lemons too much. I see a lot of dog cat foxes. The lime and lemon. Maybe I should need to come up with something for lime and lemon. Maybe do we need some special names for them? Like, dog cat fox is dog cat fox here and here only. I don't know. All right. Oh, and also Assassin of the Gray. If I didn't just miss you. There you go. Good evening to you. Oh, and You're Ridiculous Lunatic. Good evening. All right. Sorry. Where were we? About what now? 16%. All right. Don't have LGBTQ plus subjects in school. And so what?
That means that more than 4 out of 5 said there was no positive or even neutral mention of LGBTQ plus anything, 0, in their school curriculum.
Okay. How much heterosexual based subject matter was taught elsewise? This is the problem. If you're going to bring up a statistic on one thing, you have to compare and contrast it with a associated statistic on the other side. But even then, all that will say is that there is a disparity between these two things. All right. So 16%, only 16% say anything was mentioned. All right. Well, how does 16% compare with, I don't know, the general population demographic of the country when it comes to LGBTQ plus, et cetera? You said 1.5 million kids feel unsafe. And 16% say only that much. What's let's see, there's 300 million people in the United States, technically thereabout speaking. 1.5 million, it's not 16%. That seems almost overrepresentative of the time spent on a certain subject dealing with only a particular demographic of the population. But that's just me going into my offhanded numbers. And I'm an English major. I don't know anything about math.
And this number has hardly budged in the 20 years of the GLSEN survey.
Oh,
We've
no.
seen some improvement on anti-gay slurs and harassment. A curriculum that includes queer voices is completely absent from the vast majority of schools.
What does sexual orientation have to do with the quality of the educational value of any particular person? What does one's own personal private life in the bedroom have to do to contribute to the value of anything educational? What are you talking about? What do you want to see happen? You need to start getting specific. What more do you want to see? How does focusing any kind of educational time overmuch on LGBTQ plus quote unquote queer voices, how does that improve the situation? Tell me.
And the politics on this has gotten a lot worse in the last few years.
Oh, yeah?
I'll say more about that in a minute.
I can't wait.
And there are lots of other numbers.
Oh, wait, this is going to go back to Florida's quote unquote don't say. You're going to bring up the quote unquote don't say gay bill, aren't you? Not the parental rights bill. You're going to say the don't say gay bill, aren't you? That's my psychic prediction. I still haven't come up with a psychic stinger. I really need to get out the Johnny Carson Carnac picture. I keep forgetting to do that.
Numbers in the GLSEN survey that tell us how far we are from schools that aren't just safe, but actually foster a sense of belonging for LGBTQ plus kids. Fewer than half say they have access to LGBTQ plus student groups.
Is that like affinity groups?
Or teachers they can talk to about queer issues.
Why? Again, a kid. You said 14, 15, 16-year-olds. You want them talking to teachers about their sexual proclivities or preferences. Okay.
Or teachers who are out themselves.
Why do they have to be? Wait. Oh, so now teachers have to out themselves to make you happy? Why? It's none of your business. If they don't want it to be anybody else's business, they'll talk about their sex lives to their kids. What the hell are you talking about?
Or library resources that include LGBTQ plus topics.
What? 14-year-olds? Okay, all right. If my tone did not say enough, then maybe this.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
You're going to vilify teachers for not outing themselves to their students. That doesn't please you. Someone who has their private life and their professional life separate from one another makes you angry, does it? Is this what you're encouraging the students that you're mentoring towards educational profession or educational jobs? If you happen to not be straight, be sure to tell all your students in explicit terms what you do with your free time in the bedroom. Really? Okay.
Now, I know I've shared a lot of numbers so far,
Yeah.
but I want to share 2 more.
Okay.
And these aren't from GLSEN. They're from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Okay. Is it going to be subtracting oneself from the equation of life? I'm trying to be nice, YouTube, because I know you hate the word, and he's probably about to say it anyway. But
The 2021 National School Climate Survey found that 45% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth have seriously considered suicide, and 22% have attempted suicide in the last year.
What are the numbers for straight teenagers? How do the numbers compare to straight teenagers? You cannot pull up numbers like this and pretend that they are unique to these demographics. Come on. I went through that as a teenager. I know, it's crazy. I'm straight, and I went through that as a teenager. I fall within that 22%. And obviously the 45%. But I don't count, right? My experience as a teenager is irrelevant to you because I'm not sleeping with the right people or something. Come on, man.
That's 4 times the rate of their straight peers.
Oh, is it? Well, then show us the numbers for the straight peers. How does that look in the aggregate for teenagers in general?
And though we don't have good national CDC data on transgender students yet, and that's a major problem.
You're going to make a guess then?
The Trevor Project reports that transgender youth, more than half of them have seriously considered suicide.
Okay, well, that could be a subject all in of itself, because the mania over transgender status, belief, imposition by crazy parents or activists these last few years. Yeah, I can imagine when you have kids that more often than not are probably not all that stable to begin with, being told that all their problems can be cured if just they'll do this or take this or dress this way or whatever. Yeah, I can believe it. But I don't think I don't think the problem that you're alluding to is the problem at hand in that particular instance. But then I am just giving my opinion. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickle Trunk, for the happy, dancy, smiley, lovely dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox.
Well.
Anytime now, dog. I don't know why there was a delay on that. Was there a delay on your side? Sometimes StreamYards, I hit the button and nothing happens. I'm like, is something going to happen? And then it eventually does it. So either way, I hope that came through. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Appreciate it. Okay.
And that LGBTQ plus youth of color are at even greater suicide risk than their white peers.
Okay. Going to the card one more time. Circling marginalization. Circling that one. Also circling leaves out vital context. Do teenagers experience these things all around? And what do the numbers look like in comparison over the course of years? Because studies like this have taken place 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and so on. I mean, have the rates changed all that much amongst teenagers? Anyway.
Now, normally, this would be the part of the talk where I would say we're in trouble, where these numbers are a disgrace in the United States of America.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say instead is that these numbers probably underestimate the current reality.
You're probably right, because self-reporting on these things and making estimates based on percentages and depending on how you framed the studies and the questions and the surveys to come to these conclusions, it may underestimate it, it may overestimate it, but you believe it underestimates it. Okay, let's say you're right. What are your proposed solutions?
Because since then, these surveys were done in 2021. And since that time, we've seen a wave of laws, mostly at the state level, that threaten the mental health and well-being of LGBTQ kids.
You're going to bring up Don't Say Gay, aren't you?
Now, I'm sure all of you have heard of the Don't Say Gay laws.
Hey! Yeah, except it's not that, is it? Already, you lose the race because you're making stuff up now. Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I wouldn't trust any stats collected since 2016. That is not a bad rule. Although, as we know, the Satsu 2 cents rule is history started at 2016. Nothing that occurred before 2016 really matters. Let's see. Going over to the card again. I'm going to wait just a little bit. I'm going to wait. I want to get some more clarity on this. We're only about halfway through the sucker.
Or don't say trans, or don't say anything LGBTQ plus ever laws.
That is not what the law says. Show me where in the law it says that. Cite the passage. I mean, admittedly, I am not encyclopedic knowledge. I'm not Encyclopedia Brown on every single law that you're categorizing like this across the country. So if you can cite for me wherever in the legislation that it says, thou shalt not say these words, thou shalt not give support to these ideas, by all means, lay it out for me.
That are now making their way across the country, especially in the South.
Oh, those Southerners.
These laws bar discussion of LGBTQ plus literature, history, issues, or people, sometimes at certain grade levels, sometimes across the board.
Does it? Is that what they do? Okay, well then cite me the passages in the legislation that say that. It should be pretty easy. I mean, you say that they do, so you should just be able to quote them, right? Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. The law included don't say straight as well. Mr. Tickle Trunk, how dare you bring up something that contravenes his hysteria? How dare you? Also, why is the G in Bard College off kilter? I mean, is it supposed to be lowered? That just looks weird. I just noticed that. That's odd. Anyway, sorry, for those of you listening at home, on the stage of this TEDx presentation, it says TEDx Bard College, except, as I just kind of pronounced it, the G in college is raised up above the two E's surrounding it, and it looks bizarre. Also, there's a piano on the stage, and I'm wondering if we're going to get a little show tune or something at the end of this.
The dark orange on this map from the Movement Advancement Project shows where these laws are in effect.
Okay, why? Okay, I know I'm not going to get it. It's going to be quote the passages in legislation that say what you are telling us these laws do.
And the lighter orange shows where parental permission is required for students to study anything LGBTQ plus related.
You mean to study anything what related? Is that what the law says?
Which probably means they won't study it at all.
Okay, well, here's the thing. What if they also don't study anything that is overtly heterosexual as well? What if you just remove talking about sexual identity from public education? What if you just did that across the board? What if you had a kind of 14th Amendment? There's a thing I seem to recall I seem to recall something from a previous TEDx talk that we went over it in great detail. I don't know. Maybe I'm just off in La La Land.
Now, I want to take a minute and talk about Florida,
Of course you do. Tell me about Florida, where it all started.
which in many ways is where this entire wave of legislation got started.
Yes.
In Florida,
Yes.
it's now illegal to teach any content that relates to LGBTQ people or issues from pre-K all the way up through students' senior year in high school.
Is that what the law said? Okay, I'm gonna pretend here for a second that I'm a complete know-nothing about this situation. All right, so let's just say, if that's what the law says, quote the law. I know I'm going to be a broken record on this. Cite the passage in the law where it says that that is illegal. As you stated it. It should be pretty easy. If it is as blatant as you indicate it is, you should be able to cite it without any problem at all. Why aren't you citing the law? Or are we going to get that now?
So if you are a gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning student in Florida, your teachers are legally prohibited from acknowledging, much less affirming, that aspect of your identity at school.
You mean public school teachers aren't to engage with their students about their sex lives? Oh, no! Golly gee. Thank you, Chicago Mike. I like it when he is standing in front of the R in Bard College and it looks like bad college. I didn't even notice that too. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. All right. So you really want public education to engage with 14, 15, and 16-year-olds about their sex lives. I mean, I'm sorry. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
In Florida alone, the State Department of Education reported that more than 300 books were removed from schools last year.
And what was in those books that was found to be objectionable? Did any of those books, by chance, contain any explicit sexual imagery? By any chance?
Many for how they depict gender or sexual orientation.
Yeah. And how was that? Would you care to give us some examples and describe some of the content of those books that parents found objectionable? I mean, I'll wait. So far, you haven't cited for us anything to back up your point. You haven't cited any law, and I'd be really surprised if you showed us any examples of what parents found objectionable, unless you decide to cherry pick one page out of one book that shows one thing, because we've seen that before too.
In a recent article in Education Week, here's what a Florida high school student said it feels like to be an LGBTQ plus student there these days.
Here's what a teenager said it feels, okay.
We can feel when we're not welcome, as any person can. And legislation like this tells certain students that they're not welcome.
Really? Okay. Where in the law does it say that LGBTQ plus students are not welcome? Where?
State laws that tell students they're not welcome in their schools.
Really? Okay. So now we've gone from what can't be mentioned to state laws that say you're not welcomed. Okay. I know, broken record. Cite for me the passage in the legislation that says that. Go ahead. I don't know why I'm waiting so long for this. It should be the simplest thing. I mean, you never hear the end of it. When I watch something that has anything to do with, say, immigration, right, or racism, or discrimination or anything else, people pull laws from the 1890s and cite them on a TEDx stage to tell us how terrible the country was then, but isn't now, but totally still is from back then, because it was so obvious. The language was so blatant back in the 1800s. But you can't even cite a passage from a law that was passed not, 2-3 years ago. Okay. Totally backing up your argument there. Thank you, Skid Caesar. Happy 2024, Scribe and Company. Thanks for keeping it real. Best to all of us this year. May we all make it to the next. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Skid. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good 2024 thus far. Although I might be cynical. I think it might be a bumpy road ahead. But time will tell. And I do try to retain my optimism. You can't be a good cynic without a spark of optimism.
That's a far cry from the word you probably thought of when I gave you that prompt a few minutes ago.
Sorry, okay, I lost context. Need to back up a little bit, sorry.
State laws that tell students they're not welcome in their schools. That's a far cry from the word you probably thought of when I gave you that prompt a few minutes ago.
Anyway, anecdote that probably never happened. His mischaracterization and just absolute, transmogrifying of fact when it comes to what the parental rights laws actually say in Florida. Thank you, C. Thomas. It's really weird that the alphabet mafia treat it like a war crime when all that is asked of them is to not try to force porn onto kids. Yeah. I still do not get it. Why do you need to talk to minors about private stuff? I'm trying to tone it down now because I feel like the YouTube gods are going to come down on me. It's anyway, especially public education, like public teachers. Why? It's not their business. It's not their job. It should not be their job to counsel kids on that stuff. And the books in the schools, you're not even going to give any examples. You're not, okay. You have to at least, if you're going to make it anything near a compelling argument, regardless of what it is, whether I agree with it or not, whether I think it's good or not, you have to at least give voice to the opposing side. You have to give them at least a certain measure of time and list off their complaints honestly. And if your argument, in your opinion, is strong enough to knock down their complaints, then you do so. The fact that you are keeping silent and saying nothing about the truth of either the law or of the legitimate concerns of parents in this situation weakens your position. It feels like you have something to hide, and that thing you're hiding could be a truth that you just don't like to hear. But I don't know because you're not saying. But the suspicion I have about your argument in the absence of giving any voice to the opposing side always weakens an argument, whether it's this TEDx or the dozen million others I've looked at.
And no group of students has probably been made to feel less welcome in their schools recently than transgender students. 9 states, all the ones highlighted in either orange or red, now have laws that restrict what bathroom transgender students can use at school.
I wonder what our speaker would have to say about the idea of consent and consenting to having someone of the opposite gender in the bathroom with you in your most private moments, areas, etc. I just wonder.
State laws literally telling kids where they can and can't go to the bathroom.
And
23 states, all the ones highlighted in orange, now have bans on transgender students participating in school sports according to their gender identity.
No, don't worry. I mean, I've heard recently that Olympic boxing will soon allow transgender athletes. So just wait until you have a fully formed male boxing it out with a fully formed female, whether or not they're both athletic or not. It's going to be something. All right. Well, and to tell you what, you put a biological male football team against biological female football players on the opposite side, and let's see how happy people are with you after that goes down. You're going to get what you wish for at some point. It's going to happen, and it's going to be bad.
And this is on top of all the bans on gender-affirming care.
Okay, again, this could go. I could make a whole separate show about some of the horror stories regarding gender-affirming care. But if you want to at least see a hint of that, go back in my library. There was a TEDx I did a couple of years ago now. It's relatively well known now, where the title was something to the effect of, "Is the world ready for teenage gender-affirming surgery?" or something like that. It is an anger fest on my part. I'll tell you that. It is a horror story. So if you want to know my thoughts on that, going up against the arguments in favor of it, there's a whole TEDx for that one.
Care that has been deemed medically necessary by the American Medical Association.
Yeah, well, I've done a couple of streams on the AMA before too, so that doesn't really bolster your argument either.
So for those of us who want to build up LGBTQ plus kids, there seem to be more obstacles every day.
Yeah, building up, that's a strange turn of phrase. It might not have the connotation you meant it to have. Thank you, C. Thomas, again. What They Have to Hide is announced loudly and proudly by Jeffrey Marsh, because it's totally not a cult or Lolita at all. Yeah, like I say, I get where you're coming from. I got to keep on path here, or else I could go off for a long time on other things, and it's probably not going to be healthy for anybody. But thank you, C. Thomas. Appreciate it. All right. Yes. Building up one particular demographic amongst a list of demographics that always get smushed together, even though most of them have nothing inherently to do with one another. Okay.
But the need to support them has only grown as more and more bills emerge to try to legislate them out of existence.
Legislate them out of existence. Quote the law.
How do we do it?
Do what?
Now, I'm not about to stand here on my relatively safe TEDx stage in New York and tell teachers in Florida that they should risk their jobs and teach LGBTQ history and literature anyway.
Why not? I mean, you already have. You just complained that not enough teachers are outing themselves to their students, so why not? What's stopping you from that?
Now more than ever, these kids need caring teachers by their side.
Okay, so if you're not a caring teacher if you're not engaging with 14, 15, and 16-year-olds about their sexual preferences. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, well, I'm learning something new every day.
But there are some things we can do from wherever we sit.
Okay. Well, I've been waiting for the solutions to these problems, so by all means.
To insist that schools become places that aren't just safe, but inclusive and affirming too.
Oh, inclusion. Circling diversity, equity, and/or inclusion on the board. Yeah, but you're not talking about inclusion. You're talking about making special rules for certain kids based on what you may or may not perceive to be, or what they may or may not perceive to be at the time, because, teenagers are still growing and changing and learning about themselves as they go. No, you're making special rules for kids that you prefer to hold up as inherent victims. You're not talking about inclusion. You're talking about excluding all other kids. It's not like straight kids go through any identity crises. It's not like straight kids get verbally abused. It's not like straight kids get physically abused. It's not like straight kids have doubts about their life and their future, or feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or feel like they're not talked about or supported. No. None of those kids matter. None of those kids matter. How caring and compassionate is that, do you think?
First, in addition to fighting book banning and other forms of censorship, we can be on the alert for self-censorship.
The books are not banned. The books have been curated out of public schools. You can still go buy those books. Those same books you can order off of Amazon right now. If you are so inclined to want to share with your children those books, you can get them. They're not banned. You know, just like elementary schools don't have a section for Playboy magazine, they curate what goes on the shelf in front of young students. But those books are not banned. Okay? They're not banned. Unless you want Playboy to be available in elementary schools. I mean, if you're really against no censorship whatsoever, if you're against no curation whatsoever, they're not banned. You can go to some bookstores now and they have sections for banned books, which is just hilarious when you think about it for a second. Like, how are you selling that, making money off of that? Anyway, thank you again, C. Thomas. DEI crap history is not at all valid. World War I is a better historical topic than a bunch of activists crying about how any criticism and pushback is some ism. Yeah, if you want to talk about here's something that it just is social history, right? You want to talk about the legalization of same-sex marriage in this country. It is a significant historical event, a significant change in cultural mores in this country in the last several years. Now, did I think that the Supreme Court should have been the one to make that happen? No. It should have been a let to the states organically to slowly adopt those laws as things went and let public pressure and societal change go. Forcing it through the Supreme Court, I think, was a mistake. Not the worst mistake the Supreme Court has ever made, and it hasn't been the end of the world, but I felt it would have been better and easier overall if we had just sort of let it. It was already on its way. The grassroots movement was on its way, and I think it would have changed more minds if it had been allowed to percolate longer. And we might not have some of the stressors and things that we have now about it in some places versus others. There's always going to be opposition, but anyway, that's a whole other thing. And that'd be a good topic for a class to talk about, activism at the Supreme Court versus allowing states' rights to move of its own accord. There you go. But it centers topics beyond just you're a better kind of person because of who you like to sleep with. You need special protection because of who you like to sleep with. Again, this identity politics stuff, elevating some aspect of someone that is not determinative of their character, of their merit, of their skill, or something else, and worrying about them like they are a fragile egg that need to be coddled and protected from any possible hardship that comes their way. It's no different than being a helicopter parent for any particular kid. Kids have to grow up. And whether you're straight, whether you're not straight, whether you're tall, whether you're short, whether you're a nerd, you're a jock, doesn't matter. The world is not going to be a safe place all the time. And I understand. I'm not a parent, but I have been in a parental role before. And the instincts that kick in when you're like caring for a child, right? My ex-girlfriend had two small daughters. And I tell you what, the first time I held that baby and she hugged me and she was cuddling, I was like, if men can have a biological clock, and I assume that they do, mine went off in the sense that I suddenly felt like this little being needs to be protected, right? I had that feeling like nothing may harm this child. And that was me not even being a parent to this child, but simply being in a quasi-parental role for a brief period of time in my life. So I can understand wanting to protect, your children from harm and from the evils of the world. I understand that instinct to a certain degree. But there's also the reality that the world is not a nice place. You cannot protect them from every little thing that comes their way. The best you can do is let them know that you are there to support them and to listen to them when they have a problem. That's it, and that they can come to you and talk to you about it and try to work through it. But you have to be honest with the kid too. Okay. People are not going to be nice. You have to pick your battles and you have to weigh what is worth your time and energy to worry about or get upset over and what isn't. Those are the skills that are necessary to survive regardless of who you happen to be sexually attracted to. Anyway, a little bit of a rant. Apologies. Let's get back to it. You wanted to talk about books that aren't banned and banned?
The politicians who have crafted these laws have used deliberately vague language like age inappropriate.
Okay. Well, name something that you think is appropriate for 14. I'd just be curious to know.
To intimidate teachers into avoiding anything and everything queer.
What does that necessitate? What does discussing queer necessitate? Talking about sexual preference and sexuality in instances that, if not specifically within a sex ed context, are inappropriate. And especially if you're talking to 14-year-olds about explicit sex acts. I don't know if you know this, oh speaker, I'm talking to rhetorically, but there's this little thing on Twitter called Libs of TikTok. It's a channel that, for the most part, just reposts TikToks and little videos from teachers in public education most times, talking about all the wonderful things they're excited to talk to their kids about and excited to tick off Republicans or conservatives or parents about all the time. And I'll bet you dollars or donuts, if you're being honest about it, a lot of the stuff that they're so excited to talk about are A, not appropriate in school, and B, let alone not appropriate for the age group. But okay, that's the first time that you kind of quoted the law. Would you like to give us the full passage? Would you like to give us the full context?
No, I believe most educators care about their students and want to do the right thing.
Okay, you'll pardon me. I'm a little bit biased. I've been looking at educators on these subjects for the last 7 years, and I have example after example after example. They're not interested in doing the right thing. They're interested in doing the thing that makes them feel good. They're doing the thing that makes them feel affirmed in their own ideological beliefs half the time. And they're being encouraged to do so, or they're being routed out of the system for not doing so. But again, I might be a little bit biased.
But many are overinterpreting these laws, extending their reach beyond the grade levels they apply to, beyond what they actually say.
In what way? And why is that detrimental? Thank you again, C. Thomas. Funny how the Alphabet Mafia's entire identity apparently revolves all around the prawn and nothing else, according to this activist clown. He hasn't given us a specific example of what it is he thinks should be taught in school, right? So far he said laws are doing this, except they're not doing that. Teachers need to out themselves to their students. Teachers that don't do that are somehow doing their students a disservice, somehow. Talking about LGBTQ plus subjects in school, although he hasn't told us exactly what he means. I guess I have to know, in order for this to make any sense, what is it that he wants to have happen specifically? And can he concede that there is a line that shouldn't be crossed when it comes to talking about certain subject matter with minors in a public education setting? Can he give us any of that stuff and make any concession at all, again, to the concerns of the other side? You have to at least mention the other side's concerns and present them fairly. If your ideas are better, in your opinion, and can knock them down with your argumentation, then you do that. You do no one any good by keeping them secret or vague.
It's even happening in states where these laws aren't in effect at all. A 2023 RAND Corporation survey found that many teachers in states without Don't Say Gay laws are actually restricting their curricular content away from gender, race, and sexuality.
Good.
So we need to make sure we're clear about what these laws say and what they don't say.
Great! Quote for us the laws. Go ahead. Back up your claims. Show us the legislation. Make it clear. I'm right here. Again, I'm going to pretend I don't know anything about them, but I'm not going to take your word for it until you show us the text.
2, push for inclusive teaching where it's still legally possible, and for laws that not only support it, but mandate it.
What does inclusive teaching mean? Define.
I'm going to show you a map I showed you a few minutes ago.
Also, I totally forget this, and I'm sure somebody's yelling me on the chat. A list. He's giving us a numbered list. So circling a list. Okay, what does inclusive teaching mean?
But now I'm going to ask you to focus on the green states.
Uh-huh.
California, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, Illinois, New Jersey, and Connecticut all have laws that require the teaching of LGBTQ plus content in state curriculum standards.
Okay. And what constitutes LGBTQ plus inclusive curriculum? What subjects, what is being taught that falls under that? You still haven't defined any of this stuff.
More states, cities, and towns need to be doing this.
Doing what?
Especially when we know that teachers in states without Don't Say Gay laws are avoiding queer content. It's essential that local and state governments make it clear this kind of curricular inclusion is not only okay, it's the law.
What is the content? I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what is being required by law to teach. Why won't you cite the laws? If you want the laws of Oregon to be a template for the rest of the country, then lay out the language. Let us assess it for ourselves. Why aren't you telling us these things?
A high school teacher I've known for a long time,
A high school teacher,
Sarah Barber Just, teaches a course on LGBTQ literature.
In 14, 15, 16-year-old territory?
She's taught it for 21 years.
In 14, 15, and 16-year-old grade territory, she does this. Or am I misunderstanding something? Did she say did he say high school teacher? Did he just say teacher? Sorry, let me back up a little bit, sorry.
This kind of curricular inclusion is not only okay, it's the law. A high school teacher
Okay, sorry. I somehow my brain missed that. A high school teacher.
known for a long time,
Yes.
Sarah Barber Just,
Uh-huh.
teaches a course on LGBTQ literature.
Okay, so for 21 years, she's taught a course on literature where the authors have a particular sexual orientation or gender identity. Okay.
Taught it for 21 years.
Uh-huh.
Students read James Baldwin and Rita Mae Brown.
Oh, James Baldwin talked a lot about sexual orientation?
They learn about the Stonewall Uprising and
Yeah, okay, you can learn about the Stonewall Uprising in a history class. What does it have to do with what is LGBTQ plus literature? What does that mean?
Harvey Milk.
Okay, Harvey Milk. There was a whole movie done about him. Sean Penn. It was a pretty good movie.
Here's an excerpt from Sarah's syllabus.
Oh, you're going to quote something?
Students in public schools have been reading literary classics by
Uh-huh.
LGBTQ authors for more than a century.
So it's nothing new. It's almost as if their sexual orientation was irrelevant up against the quality of their writing.
However, these authors' lives are often concealed rather than rightfully explored.
Really? No one's done a biography of James Baldwin, Rita Mae Brown. These things never happened. Oscar Wilde's life was never profiled. Okay, if you say so.
This course closely examines the struggles and triumphs of these artists, as well as the historical periods during which they wrote, allowing readers to more deeply analyze their diverse literary contributions.
Yeah, literary analysis. Boy, oh boy, do I not miss that part of my college experience. Okay, good for her. And?
Now, granted, this is in the relatively liberal college town of Amherst, Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
But doesn't that sound like the kind of honest account of literary history all students should be exposed to?
No, it sounds particularly activist and specialized, but okay, you tell me, what does any of the authors in her class, what does their sexuality have to do with their literature. I mean, if there are allusions to their thoughts or feelings or things in their writing, okay. But so I'll tell you what, you can make a literature class out of anything. And, his example isn't the first one I've come across in the course of my channel's lifetime. Long, long ago, I did a video. I think I named it like the secret shape of clouds or something, where this professor at some community college was doing a, camera on his face sort of a video, getting really excited about looking for queer elements in classic literature. And I remember very distinctly, he got really, really energized talking about, oh, you want to talk about like, Peter Pan with like, it was either Peter Pan or Treasure Island. Maybe it was Treasure Island. He was like Long John Silver, with the earring and the long hair. It was either Long John Silver or Captain Hook, one of the two. But he's getting really excited about reading into the hair length and jewelry choices of a pirate as indicating queerness in classic literature. It was something else.
And Sarah assures me that in 21 years, not a single student has turned gay or trans as a result of taking her class.
That's not is that what the law would prohibit in Florida? I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. As I said, I do not have a instantaneous eidetic memory about what I read of the Florida law 2 years ago or whatever. Okay. So would the Florida law prohibit that class from existing? And here's the thing, not being facetious, I do not know the answer to that question. But a good thing to do at this point in your talk, O speaker, would be to assure us with evidence that a class such as the one you just described would be prohibited by law, and here's the law that would do it. Now, is that what he's about to do? Because I will give him all credit in the world if that's what he's about to do. But I got a feeling.
Here's another example.
Okay.
Of a school making students feel more than safe.
For those of you listening at home, maybe he'll describe it himself. We have what looks like to be some kind of art display where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different doors, like doors you would buy for like at a Home Depot or something. Each of them have been painted in a different color, not unlike the rainbow pride flag colors. And there's some kind of collage of symbols and or representations of things on each door. One is particular. The green one has religious symbols all over it. Not quite sure about the others. I hope our speaker will explain.
This is from Jericho Middle School, and it's a lobby display they had several years ago in honor of National Coming Out Day.
National Coming Out Day? I must have missed this one.
Each door represents a different part of the lifelong journey of coming out, symbolizing that we don't just come out once, but we come out many times throughout.
What if I don't want to come out at all? What if it's none of your business? What if I want to keep my private life to myself? Why do you need to know my sex life? Or especially that of students.
Our lives. First to ourselves, then our families, then our schools.
So none of this applies to straight kids. You're completely marginalizing and excluding straight kids from this conversation. Okay. I mean, you already did it several times already. I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing again, and that this middle school did again, putting in front of impressionable children what is to be celebrated and what is to be ignored. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Then our faith community, if we have one. Then our college friends. Then our colleagues at work. Each door has a message inside it like this one.
Oh, well, they all give a message, in my opinion, but anyway.
The bedroom symbolizes safety.
What? This was at a middle school again? All right, let me back up slightly. Sorry, I did cut him off.
Each door has a message inside it like this one. The bedroom symbolizes safety, personal space, and reflection. The first person you come out to is yourself. This is the beginning of your journey to becoming your authentic you. Stand tall. Be proud.
Yeah, I wonder what a straight kid thinks about that. Like they're not being their authentic self unless they go along to get along. I know, controversial opinion, I suppose. You normalize things by making them irrelevant, right? You normalize things by making them functionally irrelevant. You don't put someone up on a pedestal for something that they have no control over and says nothing about who they are. You might as well be saying that all blue-eyed kids are super special and need super special protection because one's sexual orientation and the color of their eyes are just as determinative, the two of them, to someone's character and merit and value in society. But as soon as you start doing this, I don't know. Doesn't seem right to me. Anyway, Ebony Williams, thank you so much. Nice to see you, Ebony. I don't understand how this guy thinks being smug and condescending to the opposition is going to win him over to his side. It's not. It's not. When you're being accusatory, when you're being exclusionary, when you are insulting people, you can't even, we hear on these talks oftentimes about empathy, right? We often hear people talk about they want to encourage empathy and so on. Okay. In order to make a good argument, you have to empathize to a certain degree with the opposition. You have to be honest about the fact that most people are coming to an issue in good faith. Even if they happen to disagree with you, you have to be able to try to understand their side. That is a large portion of why I do these videos, why I've done my entire channel, is that I am willing, even if I might have an opinion of my own, I am willing to sit down and listen to someone else's pitch on something and entertain it without necessarily accepting it, but at the same time, evaluate how well their argument hit me. And maybe they have a point. I still am capable of having my mind changed. As I talked about in a previous stream about The Punisher, I'm not going to go into it again, but you guys know. So yes, you're absolutely correct, and I bring this up all the time. I look at these things like they are persuasive essays, and what you have to do in a persuasive essay is you have to give at least some portion of time to the opposite viewpoint of whatever you are arguing for, and you have to be as fair as possible. People can smell when you're not being honest about the opposition's argument because you leave things out. You don't get specific. You have to give some specificity to the opposition side in order to better knock it down with your own, quote unquote, if you think so, better arguments. And so, yeah, he's not doing anybody any help here. He is preaching to the proverbial choir with all of this. And he's not giving any consideration to the legitimate concerns of people on the opposite side.
Now, we probably won't be seeing many displays like this in Florida anytime soon.
I got to tell you, I don't feel too bad about that.
But imagine if we did.
Okay, let's imagine we did. How was that received at school? Were any surveys conducted of these straight kids? And I feel awkward even saying that. You're talking about a middle school. Why are you talking about this amongst middle school students in the first place? But I can only imagine what effect that had on a kid who doesn't fit in with the glorified class of student that you've lined out.
And imagine what it would be like to be a kid struggling with their identity and walk through one of these doors on their way to class.
What if struggling with their identity has nothing to do with their sexuality? But you tell them, if you are of this mindset, if you are of this, preference, well, now you're special. Now you get special attention. You get monuments built to you because of your struggle, because you're special doing this. You don't think any of that has an effect on children at all? You think glorifying something that is probably not appropriate for middle school students in the first place, for their adult authoritarian teachers to be foisting upon them when it's none of their business in the first place. You don't think that has an effect on kids in a negative way at all? Couldn't possibly. Okay.
Third, find your allies.
No, find my allies. Right. You mean people who aren't like me when I'm. Are you talking to students or teachers now?
Florida calls its legislation the Parental Rights in Education Law.
Oh, what? No, wait. You actually used its title? Oh, wow. Wait. It calls its legislation. Okay, all right. Tell me how the law, as written, contradicts its title. I'm amazed you actually gave the actual name of the law. Okay, proceed.
An Oklahoma bill is called My Child, My Choice.
Yeah, this seems to have a focus around parental rights, doesn't it?
A national far-right group, cleverly called Moms for Liberty, is trying to infiltrate school boards and implement anti-inclusion policies in school districts around the country.
Oh man, Moms for Liberty? I think this is the first time I've heard them brought up on a TEDx. Okay, yeah, parental rights. Okay, do parents not deserve to have some say, knowledge, foreknowledge, control, or otherwise about what their children are being taught in public education?
Names like these are based on the false assumption that LGBTQ student rights and parents' rights are at odds.
What is an LGBTQ plus right? And seriously, I don't know. What is an LGBTQ plus right? What is a right that applies specifically and exclusively to people who fall into those collection of demographics? What right is special there?
But a lot of parents and guardians want their kids to learn LGBTQ plus literature.
There's nothing stopping them from doing that, is there? There isn't anything stopping them from doing that. It's called a library. It's called a bookstore. It's called Amazon. If you want to read books about LGBTQ plus stuff to your kids at home, in your own time, in your own household, by all means. It is not the realm of public education to curry that favor. All that. Sorry, my words have abandoned me. My vocabulary has gone absolutely bonkers. I meant to say it is not the responsibility of the public education system to cater to a specific sexual orientation in classrooms. If a state allows it, quote unquote, fine. If a state has a problem with bringing up sexualized material in front of children in public education, that's the state's right. That's the voters' right. And parental rights, nothing stopping parents from reading that stuff to their kids if they want to. Nothing. Whatever the state.
And history. They want their kids to be supported and affirmed at school.
How about you support and affirm them at home first? This also feeds into the trend we've seen over the last several years of turning public school teachers into gurus over children, into turning public school teachers into secondary parents, which is not a healthy thing. And especially if the teachers involved happen to be social activists in the first place. Our speaker's not going to do so, but he should. If he wanted to be honest about this, he should. He should address the many instances that have been recorded, either by the teachers themselves or in literature published by schools, about encouraging students and teachers to keep elements of student behavior, statements, thoughts, or otherwise from their own parents. Is he going to address that? Probably not. Is he going to talk about any of that in some of the legislation he's cited without actually quoting it? Probably not.
So find the people who are on your side and on the side of the kids.
Oh, whoa. Okay. I'm sorry for all the pausing, but A, for YouTube, and B, just because every other thing he says is just absolute nonsense. On the side of the kids? No. Your selected children. The side of the kids. What does that mean exactly?
They're out there. And don't accept the lie that parents don't want schools to be inclusive.
What parents say they don't want schools to be inclusive? Oh, okay, I actually have to define. Inclusion means you get everything that you want for the kinds of people that you prefer. Is that what inclusion means?
Fourth, help young people stand up for their rights.
Okay, what rights are being denied young people? Now you've said young people. Okay, so I'm assuming anybody under the age of 18, right? Okay. Or I'll be generous, under the age of 25, when brains purportedly, stop developing everything. Okay, what rights are being denied young people? I can't wait to hear this, which we probably won't, but I'd love to hear what his list is. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Again, let me get this up here. Tiny history lesson. The Parental Rights in Education Bill came about because a teacher tried to transition someone's child quietly. The second attempt to self-delete is when they told their parents. Yeah. He doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about what the legitimate concerns of parents are in these laws. And again, the fact that he is actively concealing what the other side's concerns are, just dismissing them all as just hatred and transphobia and this, that, and the other. He's not doing himself any favors in his argument.
There are lots of examples out there.
Give me one.
Of students standing back against these laws.
No, you need to give me an example of a right being denied young people. What right? And I'm thinking about rights, the legal kind. What rights are being denied young people?
They're staging walkouts and teach-ins in their schools.
Do they even understand what they are protesting against? If their interpretation of what they think is happening is coming from people like you with this interpretation of reality, I can understand why they'd protest. The laws are making LGBTQ plus students illegal. Are they?
They're writing op-eds for the local newspaper.
Great. Are they based in reality?
They're claiming their First Amendment rights.
Great. Yeah, you can say whatever you want in the public square, even if it's absolute ill-informed nonsense. And thus I present to you TEDx.
Anything we can do to support them in these efforts.
I would support them to read the laws as written and then consider what the laws say versus what you say they say.
Whether it's through education or publicity or donating to a GoFundMe page or a youth support organization, it makes a difference.
I'm sure it does. And I don't vilify anybody for doing those things if that's what they want to do with their money and their time and elsewise. I would hope as an observer, as a commentator, that they'd at least have a modicum of understanding of what it is they are railing against so they can make at least an informed opposing argument as compared to what we've just been listening to here.
And my last idea is a simple one.
Okay.
Vote. Because any politician who would use an already vulnerable population of kids as political pawns and thus risk their lives should not hold public office.
How are you not using kids as political pawns of victimization to influence people's sympathies to vote the way you want them to? The door swings both ways. Don't pretend there's any harps or halos going on around here. Come on. Sorry. I just because I not to belabor the point, but I can't help myself. He has spent this entire talk citing us numbers of the victimization of not one, but a collective of different demographics that he is holding up on high for no other reason than they happen to share a effectively cursory similarity to his own lived experience. Otherwise, you know nothing about these kids. Not that you should know any of this in the first place, but that's beside the point. But he spent the entire time going, oh, won't somebody please think of the children? And then his last point is to vote. And he is accusing the other side of using children as pawns. Let's see. Contradicts own point or argument. Did I already circle that one? I didn't, and now I have.
Should not hold public office. If we truly believe that every student deserves to feel not just safe, but represented,
then don't exclude them from your argument because they happen to be straight?
affirmed, and celebrated at school,
Uh-huh.
then we need to elect leaders who will send that message to.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, well, there we go. That was safe is still not enough for LGBTQ plus students. What exactly should the standard be? Vote the way I want you to, because the children. All right, moving on to the bingo card. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself, see if I missed anything in particular. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them, and I will get to you momentarily. Systemic or institutional? Yes. State laws and so on might not be the words exactly, but he was talking about the institutionalization of laws and so on. Sales pitch for product or service? I didn't hear anything about a product or a service. He was giving a sales pitch for his ideas, such as they were, and in railing against a particular mindset, I suppose. But there wasn't, here's my app, or here's this book, even though he talked about books, or here's, this company I work for, organization, or anything. So I don't think so. Plays victim. You see, here's the barrier I have for that one, is that the closest he came to talking about himself was growing up in 1970s New Jersey as a gay teenager. Outside of that, and given the context, I don't think he's playing a victim. He himself, okay, he may be on behalf of a bunch of students he doesn't know, putting them up as inherent victims, but he was not playing a victim for himself. It might be a little gray area, and I'm happy to take arguments otherwise, but that's my reasoning for not circling it myself. But before I move on, thank you again, C. Thomas. Sorry, Scribbles, but I left my own talk in Discord. Your own talk? What? I don't know what you mean. I have to go over to Discord. Your own TED Talk. All right. Well, we'll get to the Discord shortly. So if you'd like to see C. Thomas's personal TEDx talk in text format, a text ed talk. Anyway, I will get to the Discord link shortly. But thank you, C. Thomas. I'll take a look at that after the show. All right. Moving on. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. No, there wasn't anything micro or unconscious about any of his complaints. It was all very conscious and overt, especially when he's talking about how kids treated each other and the slurs they would use and so on. So I think he overshot in a way that kind of dodges microaggressions or unconscious bias. Privilege. Yes, at least by implication, if not by word itself, that apparently none of the problems he cited amongst LGBTQ plus teenagers ever befall straight students, I guess, for reasons. Patriarchy. No, he never really talked about like gender disparities. No. Weightless example. Yes, don't say gay, and everything that he talked about without actually citing the law or quoting the text or anything else. It does nothing. And I guess also in the negative space of not, as I said before, and have said too many times already, I apologize for repetition, not giving some time to the legitimate concerns of parents. Economic disparity. I don't think he ever brought up economics or class or anything like that. I don't think so. Feminism, no, again, that was not the ideology being pushed here. White supremacy, the closest I can say he came to was to bring up that gay students of color had a worse time of it. But outside of that, he didn't make race a key part of his argument. So I don't think I can do that one. Word salad. Now, this is a tough one because I understood what he was saying. I was frustrated with what he wasn't saying or how he was characterizing certain things disingenuously. But I don't know that there was word salad per se. I'm happy to, again, take arguments elsewise, but off the top of my head, I did have a WTF moment, obviously, but I don't know if that technically also counts as word salad. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. No, there wasn't any of that. Again, he really didn't talk about himself all that much. And he was certainly not diminishing himself in the course of this. Argumentative non sequitur. Oh, I'm sure there's a couple in here. I'd like to cite something specifically, but my mind is awash with unspecified laws and yeah, I'm sure somebody in the audience, some of you guys will give me a better one. And lastly, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything new. I didn't hear anything like this is something I like to call, et cetera, and so forth. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. So this leaves open a lot of opportunity for arguments for squares to be circled. So if you have any arguments, likewise, put them in the chat now. If you can tag me in your comment, I'd appreciate it so I can see it. And also, if you've already put it up, but I miss it, just please repost it. Just another guy. Microaggressions and conscious bias could easily be various states that don't have the laws he doesn't like, but still are curating material to not teach gay stuff explicitly. It could also be said that when he brought up the actual title of the Florida law and then just dismissed it as covering up, the truth, etc. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale. Something like that. I don't know. Sorry, that was an aside. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I agree with your point combined with what I just thought of. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll give you that. There was, sort of sideways, at least the implication of sideways insult going on. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Advocatus Diaboli, word salad of a bit of unconventional type. Here we go. He railed against censorship while celebrating the prohibiting of speech and calling for more. That is nonsensical to me. That would be contradicts own pointer argument. That is not words. It's a good example of contradicts own pointer argument, but I wouldn't call that word salad. So, I think misses the mark on that one. Let's see. Anybody else? Let's see. Advocatus Diaboli. Privilege for straight kid. Yeah, got privilege. Was heavily implied in the entire talk, almost to the point of being explicit. Yes. So I agree with you on that one. Let's see. Mr. Tickle Trunk. He did address things as part of a trans issue, but grouped LGBT constantly. Plays victim could be argued. Again, plays victim has to be the speaker sets themselves into a position of victimhood that rings false. And without knowing more of his personal experience or claims of personal experience, it's really hard to circle that square. So I get where you're coming from, but it really does have to do with the speaker in some clear way setting themselves up as the example or an example of victim. He intimated it, but he didn't lean on it. And so I can't say. It's the same thing up there with like anecdote that probably never happened. If you don't give enough context to make an assessment of the veracity of an anecdote, I can't call it an anecdote that never happened, even if it's, not a complete one, that kind of thing. That's my argument. If you have a pushback, by all means. Mark Smart, Scribelite, it might not count, but safe space is feminism most often. Safe space, classically, or at least in my experience, has been pushed up by the social justice warrior type mentality. So not exclusively feminism, at least from my perspective. So yes, I have heard safe space brought up in relation to feminism, but almost always as a social justice credo. So, yeah. Let's see. Mr. Gunn, thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, I know some of the squares are ambiguous, and it really some things have to be. I should really change that square to say speaker plays victim. That would probably clear it up. Do you think I should do that? I can revise the cards for that. Maybe that, because that has been an issue in the past. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll be a little revision. Let's see. Mr. Jiggletrunk, safe space actually started as an academic term for classes where touchy subjects were discussed. Okay, that's true too. Yeah, I can believe that certain things were co-opted in the course of social justice to mean other things. Advocast Diaboli, also, California's law being vague as hell was a bit non sequitur when his stance was vague laws were so terrible, it doesn't back up his point, or back his point up. Is that a non sequitur, or is that, again, okay, so for reference, a non sequitur is when, in the course of the presentation, the speaker brings up something as though it had great significance to their talk in some way, but then either has nothing to do with the talk or they never come back to it. So that's more of what I'm looking for there. I could see that again as falling under contradicts own point or argument. But as a non sequitur, it has to be effectively detached from his argument, but was made out to be something significant. There might be an example in the talk somewhere that I'm just forgetting, but yeah. Magister, pretty sure he was trying his best to sell a straw man from what I caught of this TEDx. Don't mind me. It was because, again, he didn't even quote the laws he was saying did certain things. He said these laws did these things, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he never showed us that they did. He never gave any kind of time to the legitimate concerns of parents when it comes to some of the material. He never gave examples of the material he said was banned when it isn't actually banned. He didn't allow for the fact that all schools curate the content in their libraries and so on. A lot of things he left out. So yeah, it wasn't an honest argument. It was a very disingenuous argument. Johnny Hellcat, word salad. I just showed up, so I can't think of any other reason. No. Sorry, Johnny. Any other arguments or squares to be circled? If this had been a different card, we might have a bingo or something, but maybe we just kind of miss out this time. I mean, all things considered, for those of you that watched last week's episode, this might just be, the balancing of the universe. Assassin of the Gray, Scarlet, playing victim as alphabet people who are always victims of heteronormative society. Nope, doesn't pass muster, I'm afraid. It has to be the speaker sets themselves up as an example, and then in some way, shape, or form, puts themselves in a victim mode that lacks credibility. And I can believe that our speaker had a tough time in 1970s New Jersey being a gay man. I can believe it. I don't have any reason not to believe it. So, unfortunately, yeah, no. All right. Let's see. Atticus, a non sequitur is a statement that does not logically follow from a previous argument. Okay, now you're pulling out like dictionary definitions on me or something. Have I been using the wrong word this whole time? Have I been using effectively like weightless example and non sequitur in the same category? Boy, oh boy. Now I got to rethink everything. Thanks a lot, Advocatus. Jeez. Conclusion or statement is not logically following the previous. Okay. Okay, fine. You got me. All right. I don't feel too bad. You know, because it's not a bingo square. It's fine. Okay, fine. You got it. Jeez. Lexi Mads. Oh, now we can start the show. Lexi Mads is here. Feminism because Monk always gets a random square when he shows up, Scribe Light. It's this or we rewind the talk. What? There's like ranting monkey like privilege now? What is ranting? Wait, is ranting monkey the Joker in the deck? Is he the wild card? I don't know if I want to institute a wild card thing for ranting monkey. And why should ranting monkey get feminism? That seems a little odd. You want to give? Tell you what, I need to get monkey on another one of these shows. I honestly, I always set up these things the Wednesday before, right? And it never leaves me any time to say, oh, maybe I should invite somebody or pre-schedule someone, because I don't know what the subject's going to be ahead of time, and I kind of want to get a subject that my guest is familiar with. Maybe I should just like throw that out the window and just say, hey, guy, friend of mine, or girl, I'm not sexist. You want to do a TEDx with me next Thursday? And they just get whatever they get, just like I get whatever I get. Maybe I should do that. I really should have that down by now. For some reason, I want to have on somebody who has some familiarity with a subject that I'm not familiar with so I can learn something. But anyway, I'll start thinking about that one. Anyway, I'm going to call it here, guys. We're almost, 20 minutes over where I usually like to go with these things, but I wanted to consider all the arguments, and boy, did I have a lot to say on this one, and so did you, and so did our speakers. So, for those of you who do not know, if you have an argument for a square to be circled and you're listening to this in the future, you can leave a comment in the comments making your argument. And if it does convince me retroactively that a square should be circled, I will, in spirit, if nothing else, circle the square. And if it does actually happen to lead to a bingo, I'll make sure to put that in the comments as well and pin your comment to the top to recognize that. Thank you again, Alan Thyler, for the good luck, happy, declarative Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat.
Wowee, wow.
Oh, there's a irate Alex Dogcat Fox. Just saw Alex on his stream the other day and said hi to him. That was nice. Speaking of the Discord server, as before, there's a link in the chat right now to the Discord server. If you'd like to join the Discord server, well, you just have to do a couple of things. First, click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you also have to give the secret word. The secret word tells me and my moderators that you actually watch the show and have earned the entitlement, the privilege, the right to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is safe. I know. You saw it coming. But there you go. Safe. Safe is the word. Not the bird, but safe. So just say, hello, safe. And I'll know that you watch the show and you become a member of the Discord server. And you can read C. Thomas's little text excellence. There you go. Text excellence. I encourage anybody, if they have their own text excellence to add to the Discord server, use the TEDx channel and give out your text excellence. With that, a couple of programming notes. I am continuing to be on the hunt, so to speak, for new speakers and new interviewees to appear on my series Living on Borrowed Crime, where I talk to true crime content creators about their work and the genre in general. If you're interested in true crime or know someone that is, who might be interested in that kind of thing, I have a whole playlist on my channel called Living on Borrowed Crime. 8 episodes so far, hopefully have a 9th one in the near future. The Sunday stream is a stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I'll talk about a topic. Not quite sure what it'll be yet. It might be about the Harvard president resigning. Thinking I might look at that a little bit, but we'll see what hits my funny bone, as it were, come Saturday afternoon. And beyond that, I have a whole library of other stuff, scripted and otherwise, on my channel. True crime, book readings, all types of things. DEI going back 7 years. You can see examples of my fears regarding education and social justice and all this other stuff going back 7 years. You can see how it's not a new thing. I feel glad that all of a sudden, in the last few months particularly, DEI has taken a front page place in a lot of people's minds. Even though I've been screaming into the wind for 7 years about it, it feels a little affirming that things I've been saying for a long time now are becoming common parlance amongst the populace. But either way, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do because mine truly is a safe space. Kind of. Unless, your ears are burning or something. And everybody who donated, either to myself or to any of the GoFundMes pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much, very much, for your generosity in this first TEDx of the new year. Let me know what you thought. And again, if you haven't seen last week's episode and you're a fan of this stuff or think you like this kind of thing, if this is your first time here, boy howdy, you need to watch that sucker all the way through. I'm just saying, it'll be worth your time. Everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday night. I hope you have a good Friday ahead of you and weekend as well. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.